Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Knobs, Dials, and Levers, how and when to use them in a startup. My name is Colin Mahon, and I'm the Director of Programs at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit that's building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. As you may have just seen in the chat, the NASDAQ Center, along with our partner Mentor Cloud, launched a free mentor matching platform for entrepreneurs called Mentor Makers. You can create your own advisory board to guide and inspire you with in-the-moment mentorship from topic experts and professionals dedicated to providing exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So find or become a mentor today by using that link in the chat. Mentorship matters to all entrepreneurs. Their success is dependent on it. Quick housekeeping, we're going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event, so please submit those questions for us in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. Try to get to them all. Now, none of what we do here at the center could be possible without all the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, BPM, and HubSpot. We're grateful and humbled by their contributions. Now, during these still, in so many ways, unique times, we're curious on how sentiment is among the entrepreneurs we work with. So before we jump into the content, I wanted to launch a quick poll just to let us know how you're feeling about your business right now. You optimistic? In a little bit of that survival mode? We do know the entrepreneurial journey is challenging. We use this information to help the wellness programs and coaching that we do for our entrepreneurs. So thank you for voting. I'm not going to let this run too much longer, but I'm going to end this poll, share those results. Looks like optimism is in the lead at 62%, but totally understand there's a little bit of survival mode and anxiety out there. Hopefully, and I'm pretty confident that our presentation today will help alleviate some of that anxiety. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome in the chat to our special guest. Bobby Napiltonia is the president of Optera and so many more things. B2B expert, friend of the center, mentor for the center. Bobby, looking forward to this. Over to you, my friend.
Me, most certainly. Thank you so much, Colin. It's always a pleasure to see you and to have the opportunity to talk to entrepreneurs. I'm truly one at heart. And so more importantly, I think, is thank you for all of our sponsors. None of this would be possible. I wouldn't have a platform to share. And also a big thank you to the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. You know, most people don't really understand or take advantage truly of what nonprofits are. And I think you exemplify what we as a company and a community really need to do for us to have a whole world of satisfaction and I think big outcomes for people. So I'm going to presume everyone can see my screen now, and we're going to jump into something I call Knobs, Dials, and Levers. And what it really is a refresh of a Rev 1 that I did for Colin and the team just before the pandemic. And I had some time to reflect and actually dug deeper into some of these areas. And so my goal for this session is to share with you 35 years of experience, trials, tribulations, success, failures. What did we do? And in each one of these categories, the knob phase, the dial phase, and the lever phase, I'm going to pull 2 to 3 specific examples of the places in which I worked that allowed those unique opportunities to occur and for you all to enjoy technology that I've been fortunate enough to work on. So before I kick this off, I'm very blessed to have been at the companies, to have worked with the leaders that I've worked with, and most importantly, to the customers, the partners, and the employees that have allowed us to get to this point, and not just the industry, but my career to be able to share this. And a big shout out, most importantly, thank you to God for allowing this all to happen. So on that note, I believe that everyone should understand that there are 5 real key pillars for you to build any foundation. And I so took the names of the places that I've worked because each one of them will tell not just a story, but how when you get magic of all 5, something special does happen, and you're all consuming those technologies today. And it starts with trust, how to gain it and how to earn it, then how to partner, the importance of culture, why purpose really matters, and how at the end of the day, the debate between team member and family will always rule. So on that note, I've been addicted to some of the most difficult problems that we have had or experienced or seen in this industry. Typically try to tackle problems or tasks where at least 90% of the world could consume the technology, therefore making truly an impact, not on the lives, but the lives of the people that we change. And I'll share some of those stories as we go through today's session. So on that note, we're going to jump into the knob phase. And without a doubt, Without a doubt, this is the probably one of the most frustrating and difficult portions of any startup, regardless if you're a new group, a new division, a new product, or a new category. And I say that because ultimately you will have, as a company, put together OKRs, or in Salesforce's case, we had something called a V2 MOM, and I'll explain that in a little bit in terms of what it is. But these are frameworks for you to measure the teams to have the outcomes. And in the knob phase, it is a little bit chaotic, because if you've ever searched for a radio station using a knob, you know how difficult it is to get to that pristine sound. But when you do, a lot of things great happen. We're going to talk about the 10 tenets that must occur during this knob phase, and what it is that you can do to ensure that you're doing them at your company, and that the experiences are going to be the right outcomes that you're anticipating. So first and foremost, everyone is in sales. And I say this because at the end of the day, if you don't sell something, nothing else matters. We can build it, we can hope, we can pray, but at the end of the day, unless we shake loose money, especially in today's economy, it's difficult. So when I say everyone, the story I'll tell is, one day I was presenting very early on at Twilio. And we had a product, and we had a Twillion, and you can imagine how easy they are to sell, because everyone in the world needs a Twillion. Well, what ended up happening is that I made a statement that everyone was in sales. And I can't tell you how many of the engineers came and running up and said, oh man, I would love to meet customers. I would love to understand how they use our product. I would love to understand what happens. Well, and more importantly, let's talk about a real use case where I said everyone's in sales, and someone on the product team raised their hand, said, by the way, I go camping with the CEO of this large company happened to be NVIDIA. The next day, that gentleman set up a meeting, sent a note to the CEO in the meeting, because we paused and said, great, please send Jensen you a note. He did. And shortly thereafter, we actually were able to earn and win the business. That is a perfect example how we would have never connected those dots from one employee to where we could actually get a deal done. And connect the dots is a perfect follow through in terms of, this is where you understand. In the real world, let's pick life insurance. I would call 10 of my friends, because I know that sometime in life they're going to die and they need to protect their families. Well, that's a very easy way for you to get close to your epicenter. But as you start growing up, and this was something we did exceptionally well at Salesforce, as a matter of fact, one of our former employees, Drew, actually created a company, CTD8AI. I'm not an investor. I just happened to see him. So I thought, I'm going to give a shout out to Drew and the team, because this allows you to upload your emails, all of your emails, and very quickly understand who within your network has a relationship with whom, so that you can connect the dots quickly and get the right meeting. Because if you are focused during this phase, you will succeed. This is also known as the drift phase, where everybody is in the chaotic state and they're not focused on the prize. And that prize is, am I getting traction? Is this real action? And are these things following through with what I ultimately need to do, which expand my footprint and grow my revenue? So as we look through all of those, the most important thing is for you to fail fast. Failing fast, people go, is that in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? What actually is that period of time to fail fast? Well, I'll give you some examples of where we actually failed fast. But before I get there, one area that I really want to talk about is on the focus part. And as you're focusing on this, it's really important to understand at core the value proposition, so that you can actually know what to go after. Take, for example, at Salesforce. I can't tell you how many folks said, great, we love it. Can we run it on premise? No, we were focused on SaaS and SaaS only. As a matter of fact, only the mid-market. We weren't allowed to talk to anyone upstream. And that maniacal focus, not just on how we're going to target and what we're going to land and what we're going to do, allowed the team to be successful by having these repeatable patterns that we have. That allowed us to fail fast when those patterns weren't necessarily matched. And this is also during this phase, listen. And this is mainly because your customers are going to pull you in every single direction. I need, I want, I must. At the end of the day, the product team must hold true by understanding that you can only sell what you have to sell, because every time that you ask for something new, the stress that it puts on the engineering and the product team could break the company, which is why it's so important during this listening phase. What do they really need and want to buy? And are you solving their solution? Or are you shoehorning yourself into a situation that you will regret? And you can understand that better by understanding the ideal and defining the ICP, the ideal customer profile. Because as we go through this process, we need to understand who is the buyer, who is the sponsor, who is the supporter, where do I unlock the money? Because understanding the buyer is without a doubt the most important part of the phase. So when I say AICP, some people say, oh, is that the insane clown posse? And no, it's not the case whatsoever. It truly, truly is understanding who is the individual that hears your message that can actually get there. So take, for example, at Enlighted, understanding that we actually had about a dozen ICPs. And what it really, really mattered was we created sensors that went into ceilings, that went into light fixtures that got installed at time of construction or at a time of a renovation. Just think of the orchestration necessary to get each and every one aligned, that if you understood the buyer, which was the inhabitant of the building who put it on their spec of what they wanted, you were ensured that you could unlock the money for every new building or facility that they grew. So by knowing the ICP, understanding the buyer, and knowing how to unlock those dollars, it allowed us to truly accelerate. For example, at Enlighted, we thought we knew the buyer in a retrofit business. And this is when we would go in and an entire portfolio of a company, like a large telco, and all of a sudden they would want to upgrade and retrofit and make it a smart building. Well, it turned out that the driving driver for that individual was their own MBO, which was savings, which was on energy, which is one of the byproducts of the product. So in reality, we found a super unicorn that could never be produced, that was the gift that kept on giving. And so in a way, it was a false signal on where we should go. And we were never, ever, ever able to unlock more money like that again. And that's why we look at things like Salesforce. If you understand the buyer, it's very easy to unlock it. For the first time in the history of purchasing, sales leadership had a seat at the table to make a decision. Just imagine that, the salesperson with power, the sales leader, all of a sudden they got to choose what tools they got and what they used so they could produce a forecast. And that allowed us to actually go out and find new buyers. Pick unlocking the money in e-meter. This is someone selling to the utility. We all consume electricity because if we didn't, we wouldn't be here today. Just imagine what it would be like to unlock those dollars. We discovered, after understanding the buyer journey and knowing who the ideal customer profile was, that it was ultimately the Public Utility Commission. That is where the money came from. So we enabled our customers, the utility, to install a platform to turn a smart meter into a subscriber and to change fundamentally the business of an entire industry to look very much like that of subscriptions, which we did at Salesforce. And that then allowed every utility to write a rate case for a product that could be built on the platform, that could be approved by the PUC, that could be funded off balance sheet to allow them to grow. This brings us into the never lose alone. I remember my first time in the enterprise space, I was working at BEA and I was told, bring a suitcase to work. And I thought, empty, packed, where am I going? And it turns out that at the end of every quarter, we got into the war room, or the room that we didn't want to lose, and you would be deployed to an opportunity as an executive or an asset to ensure that it actually got closed. This is something that we did very well at Salesforce, where Mark was even known to troll the app to understand, were we in the right accounts? Were you asking for the right help? Did you know no one wants a hero in this phase? The most important part is if you understand the ecosystem environment, you'll understand the buyer, you'll know how to unlock the dollars, you'll have a team helping you, but only if you're prepared. Preparation means know thy enemy, know thy customer, know thy segment, know everything humanly possible so you're never caught off guard. And if you don't know, it's okay to say, I'll get back to you, because the last thing anyone wants to hear is a retraction for something that you may have committed. So as we get through this knob phase, there will be a tremendous amount of static out there. You're going to hear and feel things that you don't think are natural. Please fail fast and understand that if you don't get the ICP to know the buyer on how to unlock the money, you will be losing and you'll most likely be alone. But it will only be because you did not prepare. So as we move the Dob phase, because we now have a signal, and that signal is that little radio where it's not so staticky, and I can actually hear what is coming through. And we're moving to the dial phase. Without a doubt, the toughest phase of any company. I mean, just think about looking at that keyboard. How many dials are there? What does each one do? Can it help perfect what we're going to hear? Or will it be a distraction and make it actually sound awful? So during this phase, it's more important than ever that open communication, a framework for metrics like OKRs or B2 moms or whatever you so choose, is in place. And phase one is done where everybody knows what they're doing to be successful. And we're going to talk about where and why and how. And the reason being is, can you imagine? In this phase, you've got to get your marketing message aligned, your brand message aligned. Who are you messaging to? What's in it for the analyst? What's in it for the press? How do you get that particular air cover? What do the customers hear? What happens in pre-sales? What's stated in post-sales? How does that customer get engaged? Those are a lot of moving parts to coordinated that without a system, you will most certainly fail. So wait, when we think about the systems, and we think about how and why they work, the first and foremost is around alignment. Alignment that is set from the top, the tone, the pace, the goals in which we're going to achieve them. And then we're going to have SOPs or SPPs, I call them. And these are standard operating procedures, standard success procedures, standard paths that are proven that allow the new employee, because then we built to last person, do it once, refine, 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 and allow it to grow. And those are the systems that you need to understand at each phase of this journey so you don't overspend or underspend, and you're at a point to scale when the relay comes. We've probably all watched a relay race, and there is nothing more embarrassing than hearing the ting, ting, ting of the baton dropping. Well, when we think about that baton dropping in a relay, it's no different than the Model T Ford when it went through the production line. If something wasn't there, it would have halted and stopped. And so as we think about these clean handoffs of the roles and responsibilities to take an MQL, to become an SQL, to get through the process, to become a customer, to get first launched, to then be expanded, to be renewed, and that entire life cycle requires a relay. And in that relay, everyone must watch everyone run when it happens and what is happening when. I can imagine at Creative Labs where we made hardware, we had to bake the hardware, put it into a box, ship it to a distributor or a manufacturer to be built into a PC that would then be put into a distributor that would be pulled onto a retail shelf that would be consumed by a consumer, all within less than 60 days, because technology was changing so quickly that you would have stale inventory on shelves that had markdowns that could kill not just the company, but any retailer sitting on inventory. At Salesforce, we measured everything. And it's not because there's a blame game. What we wanted to understand was, where are the leads? Where's the dollar in versus the dollar outcome? And so we had the 4 horse people, and these were lead sources: marketing, partners, SDRs, and then general demand gen. And in those categories, we measured where would we invest $1 to get $10, to get $20, to get $30 back. And that allowed us to understand efficient, effective scale. But more importantly, when we were leaving the early adopters, moving into the early majority, so that we could be prepared for the transparency necessary to understand how it works, why it works. This is not a Fight Club moment. This is not a blame game moment. This is truly every individual understanding that they're larger than their role. And it's more important for us to understand and iterate and iterate and iterate. It's like sharpening a number 2 pencil for that test. It can never be pointy enough. And as you get through this and we turn the corner, the menu is the most important aspect to scaling. We'll take a quick diversion here for a moment. When I think about menus, many of us probably have went to a McDonald's. Well, I must share a little secret about their menu. There was one additional item set that almost put them out of business and took over 2 years to recover. If this was live, I would ask you to guess. Many of you are probably saying, I don't know, but it was salads. Now think about what we've talked about: the systems, the alignment, the relay, the transparency in a machine like a McDonald's, who tomorrow introduces salads. We have to train people how to order. People that order salads don't order number ones, number twos, or number threes. We then have to train the person in the back how to deal with something a little more perishable, what to do when a special item comes. It's not hold the pickles, it's something totally different. So turns out that they were also able to save McDonald's with the menu. And what they introduced was the all-day breakfast. Because in America, we have a shift starting every hour on the hour, and people need to eat. Simple menu-driven deals. This is something we perfected very well at Salesforce, because you could actually, and we're going to get to this, sign and drive on a trial. The menu allows people to be educated on what to buy, tutored on how to buy, and then shown where to buy. And this is all done in an elegant fashion. And we're doing that today at Okira, where we used to have a yard sale. And this is not a bad thing. At every phase in the company, you go through the yard sale. What do I have to sell that someone will buy? And very quickly, you want to fail fast in the last phase so that you could say, I need vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry ice cream, because those are typically 3 flavors, because we as humans, ABC, 1, 2, 3, red lights, red, yellow, green, can almost always process 3 things. That takes me to the deal desk, because at this stage, you will still have bespoke opportunities. There is no sense in involving the whole company. Set up a standard deal desk process in the morning, in the evening, and all of the parties that can actually come along. And before we get to the deal desk, we'll give you some great examples of how we've changed business models that affected an industry, all driven by the menu. So at Untitled, we had sensors put in ceilings that were attached with a light. So if you look up now, you see lights everywhere. Think about what it would take to get an Intel inside integrated into that light fixture, so that when it shipped, the individual that could install it would know. And more importantly, that all of the design of that building had been taken into consideration. So each and every new construction, 50 floors, had a person spot and dotting where it would go. Really, rather quickly, we said to ourselves, let's stop doing all of the extra work. And what if it was $1.10 a square foot? We changed an industry that used to spot and dot where lights would go through designers and systems to making it as simple as 100,000 square feet, times it by $1.10, 1,000,000 square feet, times it by $1.10. And the industry just couldn't understand how we could do it. Well, the cost of goods and the margin associated allowed me to almost overship 10% overage, which this industry already was accustomed to allow it so that we almost started winning every single bid and deal, making the lives easier by training them in this boot camp and enablement phase. You cannot assume and expect that everyone will operate the way you want them to. So boot camps and enablement are the most important part for you to ensure that as you scale, the message, the movement, and everything in which you have will be followed through so that the customer gets the most probably best experience regardless of where it came from, a customer, a partner, or anyone else. So on that note, these boot camps, wow. I want to say that we set the gold standard at Salesforce because we had to create an industry. And today, people covet hiring folks that have gone through those boot camps because a few things. One, they know how you used to use the tool. You know how to use Salesforce. 2, you've been trained on how to act in your role by having years and years of doing it. And bar none, it is world-class, and there's probably nothing else in it. At Untitled, we ended up turning it upside down, and we used the union halls. Yep, that's right. To train the electricians, to move them up the stack, so to speak, from being a regular electrician to a network cable provider. And that actually allowed them to earn more money. There were 2,000 locations across America. And as we were being acquired, we started rolling out training to facilities to change lives of the people for things we consume every day. And no pun intended, we lit it up. So on that note, it becomes the community and the ecosystem. And in this phase, there's a lot of care, love, and feeding that goes into it, just like you would a family. Now, you've made it and you need to super measure success. And so if you know anything about a community, they follow like a religion. Now, I don't necessarily want Kool-Aid drinkers. What I really want are true believers. And at Salesforce, we had true believers because they felt part of our Ohana family, that belonged to part of our culture, that knew that you could trust us because we had published trust.salesforce.com so that the whole world could trust us. And we lit up something so special that is the moat of moats that no one will ever penetrate. And today, that's $1 trillion ecosystem that is super, super special, that has communities within it based upon practitioners. And those people became heroes for us, and we allowed them to actually win. The ecosystem that we had at BEA allowed us to own the first phase of the internet. And that was because Intel cared what ISVs would write on top of our platform, so that as they grew up and spread, they would ultimately own that first layer over a company like Sun Microsystems. And in the end, we know who won, because they understood how to light up an ecosystem, give the care, love, and feeding, and ensure success for that community. And if you really, 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 really get it right, you get to the point of sign and drive, like we did at Salesforce. Truly, truly log in, get a demo, get a trial, like it, keep moving. That is the pinnacle of knowing your customer, understanding what they want, and how to deliver it to them friction-free. Another sign and drive is very similar to what I said around Enlighted, where you truly could take square foot times $1, give me a quote, here's your price. Just think about the simplicity, simple math, simple calculator. At Creative, our sign and drive was the SDK, because every PC we shipped that had audio allowed you to actually have another app built on top of it. So when we think about the opening slide, where we created audio for the industry, we created the cloud for the industry, we powered the internet, we changed most ways people communicate via text. All of those things are the beginnings of the flywheel. And you must test it to truly understand, is this repeatable? Is it capable? Is it sustainable? What will the care, love, and feeding take? Because once you get this momentum going, you will be in that third phase, and perhaps the most wild phase. Now, how I know that is because I've lived through it several times. And in this phase, you truly get love. And these levers we're going to walk through are kind of like a band. And when they play it properly, it just happens to be platinum hit after platinum hit, and people will follow, and the crowds will grow, and your company will be successful. So in the lever phase, I love this phase. Without a doubt, this is fueling the fire. You get harmony. And very rarely do you find a company that has stitched all of this together so that it fuels a fire, like we did at most of the locations and places that I've worked and shared with you today. So with that drum beat that we get, and that we need to be able to hear the music, to have the motion to move to, it starts with demand gen and sales. And this allows us to understand the funnel, the top of the funnel, the tofu, the middle of the funnel, the mofu, as I like to say, the kung fu. Every part of the funnel needs to be known, intimately understand what it is. And when you get 100% love, it crosses your employees, your prospects, your customers, your partners, even people that want and covet to work for you. It's almost like a call to personality. And most of those logos, actually all of them, we created that, which allowed us to be the leaders and become standards around the world in technologies that you use and consume every day. So when we get into this phase, you have your customers, the most important part. We're going to go why. Without them, there is no lifeblood. You have your partners. This is how we scale. You have your community. These are the validators. And then you have the internal groups of demand gen and sales, which are just like the blood flow pumping to ensure that we have movement always. by getting the message out, making you understand why you need it, and proving why everyone really is in sales. Because when you have 100% referenceable love, what your customers will say about you is 1,000 times more important than what you will say about yourself. Get them on film, put them on pedestals, highlight them, because everyone really is in sales. The more that people talk about what it is that you do, how you've changed their lives, and the change that they've been able to drive, the more it will fuel your growth. Because success is truly infectious. Whether I stay at this company or move somewhere else, I'll bring you with me. I will tell my friends about you. I'll let everyone know how easy you've made my life. The pushers then push. Let's just take, for example, in the utility business. The success was infectious because they didn't compete with each other. Think about that. If you lost your job, you had to move out of state. So the whole goal was, could I get it right? And we did. And we actually propped up a small utility, CenterPoint Energy, in Houston, Texas. And in 1 year, they hosted more than 250 on-site visits. So when someone would say, I'd want a POC, I'd say, here's your plane ticket. And that success allowed us to light up 17 countries to become a global standard on how the energy information was managed. Because that ecosystem created an economy that allowed everyone to win in it, propelling the success of the customers. So when we think about the ecosystem and the economy, the companies that I covet are like Microsoft or even Cisco, where they grew up truly, truly, truly channel driven, where they had to do all of this work for them to be successful. And then they could take a step back at the end of the day because they knew for a fact that their Microsoft partners would push their products so that their children would go to school and have food on the table. That is a great call to personality, driving solutions to people that they need, creating an economy as we go through that. And so as you realize this, you need to recognize who are the leaders. You need to recognize internally. You need to recognize externally, because the people want to know now, who is doing this? How can I depend on you? Is it real? Because at this point, it is so real that the platform is the menu. Most of the companies I've worked truly, truly are platform-based companies. Take, for example, Salesforce, the app exchange. It changed the world by creating new applications that we would have never built by people that may have never had the opportunity to build an app. And there was nothing still to today more rewarding. And this happens more often than not, where I'll get a text from an individual thanking me that they sold their company, that they're going to be a philanthropist, that they're going to donate their time, all because of the opportunity that the app exchange afforded them. At Twilio, this was even more significant, where we had an individual in Sri Lanka become the first millionaire off of our platform by selling Quran quotes by the penny and just texting them out. Being one of the largest religions, that individual had millions of subscribers, giving them $1 a month, allowing them to have the religious message they needed delivered to them daily with a simple text. That is how you change lives. Those are lives changed. And we're going to talk about that as we get to the third phase of the session. You will only do this with thought leadership. And that comes from the awareness, the education, the recognition, the ecosystem, the infectiousness of the sales. Everyone is selling. This is going to propel you to that point where you truly are everywhere. At Creative, we thought everywhere meant audio, video, graphics, speakers, CD-ROM, DVD, like you name it, and it was. At Enlighted, it was the apps that drove the sensors into the ceilings. At Emita, it was the PUC that actually drove the apps to be created onto the platform. So as you think of that everywhere, the platform gives you the opportunity to succinctly backtrack through this that I shared and showed with you, so that starting on day one, you can end up being grateful, thankful, remembered, and everywhere. So as we think through this, the brand associated with how you get there, the intel inside that I shared with you with the Blaster PC that we launched in Brazil became the #1 selling PC because we partnered, we understood the brand and what would carry us. And to that point, you could have walked around Comdex, which is a trade show, when you used to gather information, everyone had a bag that looked like our box, and it looked like 10 million people advertising our brand for us to be everywhere, to be remembered, And I'm extremely thankful we had the right marketing department that knew that's what it would take. So as we get through this, the one thing that I truly want to underscore is change lives, create lives change. We can only do that through technology. As we reflect back on today's session, the knob, the dial, and the lever, I'd like each of you to think, what is it that you can do so that every action you take will allow you to celebrate with friends, families, customers, and partners, have a following of millions of people, launch rockets to places that have never gone and land on a floating pad in the ocean so that you can take the time and truly reflect on how you can change the lives leveraging technology. So with the teamwork, celebrate the success, get the followers and get them to believe, do great things. And ultimately, because if you change a life, it will come back to change yours. And on that note, thank you for your time today. Follow me on LinkedIn, and I've left some time for questions, knowing that there may be more than not. And so on that note, Colin, I'd like to open it up and walk through some of these phases and see what we've got coming at us.
Love it. Bobby, thank you so much. I'm always blown away from all the insights that you have. If you want to stop sharing your screen, we can have a conversation, Brady Bunch style. Awesome. Bobby, first of all, yeah, amazing content. Love it all. For those of you who haven't been able to ask a question in the Q&A box yet, drop them in. We have some pre-submitted ones that I could roll through, but before that, I've got a quick poll that I'd love to launch that just helps us understand, in addition to this talk, which topics would you like us to cover in the future? Is it sales, marketing, finance, pivoting, team, or survival? So let us know, and then we use this information to help fuel the upcoming couple of months of content that we prepare for you all. So thank you all for voting. It's kind of going a little bit of a tie here, but I'm going to end this poll and share those results. Looks like marketing followed by sales and finance. So we'll make sure to put some of those up in the future. So drop those questions for us in the Q&A. Bobby, looks like everyone's a big fan. Thank you so much, Bobby. Thank you for that beautiful information. So Bobby, I mean, I think B2B sales, I was just talking to an entrepreneur this morning about it. The lead time can be a little bit longer than one is comfortable with. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I think if you take
patience and meditation.
Most certainly, you know, your poll actually, I think, surveyed and showed it. And I bet you if we did that 3 years ago, marketing might not have been the top one. And it's primarily because think about this world we're living in a fishbowl. The only thing that I can do, and I talk to a lot of companies, and I've been out to some events recently, and I can tell you which ones work and don't, and meaningful conversations, is that we as humans are pressed flesh people. And so therefore, the only way in which we actually could accelerate that lead time is by not having this inanimate way of engaging with you. Unfortunately, this is the way in which we have to engage, which then extenuates the sales cycle. So where I work now, we actually did a project. I've only been here a couple of quarters, but it was called the Breadcrumb Trail Project. So 55% of our opportunities visit our website 11 times, and I actually knew that gestation period to get them through that. So my immediate thing was, how do I make that 7 times? What did they touch? Where did they tell? So we went through this iteration, iterate. We've iterated our website 3 times since I've been here, mainly because we're honing in on that message that grabs you on the first one. My ideal state is you'd have an explainer video. It comes, Colin, I see this video. I know I can identify. I need this now. I have FOMO. We have to rethink marketing and that engagement by showing the successful outcomes. And not really, we were just talking to someone, we're not in sales, we're in salvation. If you don't have a need for our product, we're going to move on, especially when you have the logos and the things that most companies can actually stand on. You've looked me up on LinkedIn, you've taken a blood pressure medicine, you paid a bank bill online. Like, those are things that I say I'm part of your everyday life. You looked at the stock market. Those are things you can trust. So if those companies trust your company, then they're going to trust you. And that's all part of this trust data revolution that we're really getting behind, kind of like the no software mantra that we had 20 years ago to spur the cloud industry.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I mean, some of those Fortune 500 companies, 18 to 24 months. How do you, I guess, extend your runway if that's such a long lead time between closing the deal?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So so it depends on the product and what you have. Extending your runway is just a matter of input, output, burn flow, right? So, I mean, that's a finance exercise. How long do I think I'll get this uptake? But what I would probably rather talk about is there a flywheel you haven't uncovered in the partner ecosystem that you should pay attention to? I just went through this with the company. Are there ways that you could work on prepays with the partner that you actually know wants to have something about your product? There's 99 ways to solve problems when you get together as executives and walk through the potential way to solve that problem. Accelerating deal cycles, we joke about this, unless there's compliance, governance, you're going to jail, there's FOMO, your competition has it. It's really hard to unlock budgets these days. And so it's nice to be a need to have, not a want to have. And I think that goes back to knowing your buyer, knowing the positioning. How do you unlock that money? Because everyone I know has a problem. It's, can you reach that person with the problem and show them that you solve it? Hence, you hear me talk a lot about the awareness, the education, the thought leadership. And all of those companies were small startups that no one heard of when I started, like literally no one. So we would grow from 30 million to 1.5 billion, fastest growing company in the world, fastest growing software, fastest growing non-software company, fastest growing IoT company. Like when you get those things, that magic occurs that you can solve those problems, but you have to truly focus on getting to that first flywheel. Then you don't have those 2-year cycles because that's not who you should be selling to.
Yep. I love that. And you mentioned something that gave me and keep those questions coming. We got some on YouTube too as well. But you mentioned something that gave me a light bulb on something that I've heard somebody ask about recently. So I'm shouting out to an entrepreneur out there who asked me this question. So in terms of discounting, what's your position on that? And how do you actually show the value? Because there's a lot of people who do free pilots, and I know your position on this, but yeah, can you share some wisdom on that?
Yeah. Let me ask you some questions personally. When's the last free thing you did for a friend? Did you help them move?
Yep.
And was it painful?
Yeah.
And you're going to do it, and you're ever going to do it again?
There better be a meal involved in the next round.
Right. So I always say moves, I'll buy pizza and beer, right? That's my contribution. Like you just exemplified the problem. No one likes to do anything for free. And when we do, we're begrudging it and everybody hates it. Like who wants that feeling? If you're going to get value, give something for it. If you can't sell value, move on. Now, if you have PLG and freemiums part of your product, that's become a whole new way for people to try trials and buys. We did that at Salesforce because you know why? It was new and you didn't know what to trust. You couldn't prove it. You couldn't get to that point. Here's what I say to people now when they ask me, I want a trial. We were very fortunate. I go, watch the video. What do you mean? Here's 6 of our customers telling you they solved the problem. They spent millions of dollars, so you don't have to. Watch the video. If you don't believe the banks, the institutions, these people, I don't need to waste any more time. Move on, people. Like, stop hoping that it's a sales as a strategy. I saw a question here from Mark. Mark, I completely agree with you. I think that's more if we're going to bring people back to work. Can we have healthier buildings, greener buildings? I actually think that we need that. The question is, will it be air filtration or will it be lights that actually take care and kill that? So I know it's probably a sidebar conversation, but it's a great way to say, you know, do you bring people back to work? Is it about the safety of the employees? Is it about the technology that goes in there? So hopefully that answered your question, Mark.
Love it. Another question that came in, can you suggest a resource that offers the audience an opportunity to get better or a greater detail and understanding into the many areas that you covered? Any resources, books that you would around some of this? Yeah, subscribe to your newsletter.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, Colin, you and I talked about me preparing for this and I spent more time sort of going through the outline and you know, I said this is a 101. You know, we should double click into how do we make maybe one of those a 101, a 102 or a 201 or a 202, because I do think there's a wealth of knowledge. I would love to tell you that there's a book. That's all trial, tribulation, errors, scar tissue. As I tell people, I've been crucified, quarter horse, waterboarded. You pick the torture. It's been done to me. I'm really serious. I mean, you don't get to grow up billion-dollar companies multiple times by being necessarily a walk in the park. You know, we had a lot of small competitors at those places too, like Oracle and Microsoft and SAP. I mean, think about that as you guys out there are 10, 2, or 4, or 5, $30 million company creating against a 30, 50, $100 billion behemoth. David and Goliath moments are real. They do happen, and this is the industry that allows it.
Yep. Oh, I love that. So we had another question that came in around expansion into new markets. So what are some key indications that it's time to expand into a new market or to expand your business into new locations?
Right. So I wonder if it's geography or language they're talking about. So I'm a big believer in following the bouncing ball. And there are two indicators for that, Colin, in terms of the bouncing ball. One is a signal to noise ratio. Where are the leads coming from? And so what I try to tell most companies is, let's go with the bouncing ball. So you know the path of least resistance, water downhill. Okay, so for us, that would be, do you speak English? Great, that's Australia, the UK, and different parts of the world. Maybe I get the ASEAN market. Do I have to redo my documentation to your local language so you can consume it? Oh my God, that's a heavy lift. How do we make sure all the words are right? So you start looking at ease of entry based upon the first part, the ball bouncing, where can you go? The inbound, where is it coming? But I'll give you the best example. So this was one of mine, and I was really worried about running out of time. At Twilio, if you understand and know your customers well enough, you can turn them into levers. And our biggest lever there was a company called Uber, which everyone in the world knew. And so could you imagine me going into a country like France and saying, hey, man, I'm Bobby with Twilio. Yeah, you never heard of me. I'm some small $10 million company, but I want to buy 100,000 phone numbers from you. They'd be like, what are you talking about? Where I go, Bobby, I'm the emissary for some small company coming to your country called Uber, and I run their communications infrastructure, and I'd like 100,000 numbers so we could light up your country. What else would you like, Bobby? So they became my snowplow immediately. Instant access, any country immediately, where I could never get a meeting. Again, when I walk through these tips and tricks, they truly are things that you could ask me a question. I'll tell you how we used them and unlocked them. So that allowed me to then, they weren't speaking English, but I got to draft behind my biggest, they were a top 3 customer. I got to draft behind them so that I could actually know where to go. Let me take it since we're on Twilio. How do I know to go wider? Again, how could you even sell a Twilio? What is it? You give me a penny for something that I don't know what it is. So we would sit there and look at the data. You hear this fail fast. And we had 10,000 leads coming in a month, or so we would say, or so we had thought. That really wasn't the case, because it was noise to signal ratio, which is why that static in that knob phase is so important. So it turns out you give me $5, you open an account, you give me $6, you give me $10, you give me $5, give me $30,000, 180,000. This is the same one. I go, whoa, what's that data? Hey, that's farmers only. The hell is farmers only? Well, it turns out it's a dating site for farmers who work in America and still need to get married and got nowhere to do it because they're working 20-hour days. All of a sudden I went, dating is the gold mine. We're going to go own that. What does that mean? So I sent a note to, just like everyone on this call, to my employees. Talk to your partner this weekend. Download every dating app. Next week, we're going to have a contest, and you could win a week away on Bobby and the company if you give me the best killer apps. So what apps did we come up with? Disposable phone numbers. So I meet you on a dating site, and all of a sudden I don't like you. You can't have my number. I throw the number away. We started selling them for $1. All of a sudden you got to your dating site. You go, I want the $20 package, unlimited disposable numbers. I'm a dater. I see you shaking your head. So we gave anonymity. All of a sudden I had a suite. We called it the use case suitcase. I could show up to any vertical, any customer, and say, here's how you put communications, delivery receipts notifications. Did you get it? It's coming. Oh my gosh, password resets. Like all those texts that you get 10 years ago didn't exist. We had to come up with those models so that when I showed up with my use case suitcase, I could slam them down. And those took me to new industries, new markets, or I followed my customer. So I got geographic expansion.
Use case suitcase. I love that term. This is all great, Bobby. All right, let's see. We got another question here. So any advice for somebody in the healthcare industry, especially for Medicare and oral? I know personally the healthcare industry takes a bit more time than most and has a lot of regulation and compliance around it. So any advice there?
Yeah. Look, I have to be perfectly, totally honest. There's nothing that I truly love more than regulatory. Now, let's just take a step back and I'll tell you why. Most people hate it. Think of us as consumers. Would you wear a seatbelt today if you weren't mandated? I would hope so, because you're a smart person.
Yeah.
Would you have a couple of drinks and drive if it wasn't allowed? Like we'll go down this checklist of simple things as humans that we would avoid, that without that regulation and those compliances we would be doing, and it would be a horrible place to live. So with that said, though, let's be honest, specifically to the group I'm in right now, where our goal is to have trust globally on the internet, like we did with Salesforce, no software, and you have no software. We want to make sure that everything's trustworthy, because there's not a week or a month that goes by that somebody on this call got that letter that says, hey, Bobby, we're so sorry for that $35 modem you bought from us, but we leaked your information and we gave away the keys to your house and your social security number. Like, in what world? It's like I have better protection on my home than all of these companies do of my sensitive data. Because if you break into my home, you're not getting in the safe. But if you break into those companies, you're taking all of our information. It happens every day. It has to stop. Thank God we have GDPR. They're stopping the companies from pilfering and stealing and being irresponsible. It's no different than, look, all the things we heard of Bernie Madoff and the shell game, that is no different than them being irresponsible with our data. Let's be clear.
Sorry about that. Let's see if we still got attendees coming on. Yeah, just shut down. You were just talking about like modem and like consistency, and it just dropped. Well, we've got people back. All right, we've got at least one back. Sorry about that technology issues here, folks. But we are back on. The team says YouTube looks like it's still going, so here we are.
All right.
But so we might have just lost everybody, but we at least got one back. All right, so what were you just saying? I don't want to miss any of this.
Yes, so I think we were at the part where and now I've lost my train of thought. I thought it was me that got kicked off. Thank God it wasn't the culprit. I believe the question was, how do we get everyone rallying around the theme, correct? And we had compliance in healthcare, and so that we would actually have governmental intervention. And look, you saw this last week on cyber warfare and what's going on and what's happening in general. And I really do believe that we need a stronger, stiffer stance on it. Who gets the data? Where is it? I mean, you see all in the press, all of the apps kids are using, that's not just sucking their minds and their time, but mining their data for what they've got going on. So we're going to see a whole new, I think, the next decade of what happens, why it's there, what's working, what's not, and how it works. I think it's going to be an exciting decade for technology to start doing the things that protect us the way that it should, kind of like the wear your seatbelt type like thing.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we need help, we need protection. And for better or worse, it's going to be government agencies. And that's why we as people can join those groups, affect those groups, help drive that message so that it's not necessarily upside down. Because at the end of the day, technology can address most issues and solve most problems.
Yep, I love that. And yeah, I mean, that's such a good point on the we like regulation point because, yeah, it does keep you safe and people's information safe.
Okay, what CFO looks good in orange?
What's up?
What CFO looks good in orange?
I don't know.
None of them. Just like no CEO looks good in orange. Nobody wants to be wearing an orange jumpsuit.
Oh, hey, I love that. Yeah, and I've heard other sales pros say that like one of the 5 reasons you buy things is to stay out of jail.
Well, here's the good news. Here's the good news. The fines are real and people are being convicted, which is all we could hope for. And they are bad characters and they deserve that. And that should be something that we promote too. By the way, do you know that you or I could go on the dark web right now and we could find someone looking for us and they would pay us a couple $100,000 for our work credentials?
Probably, yeah, that's nuts.
Beyond insane.
Luckily, I'm not a target, but yeah. Oh wow, Bobby, we're almost at time, and we still got 3 champions on the call, and we started live streaming again, so we're back up. Send the same link. So sorry for the technical difficulties, everybody. So Bobby, I guess there's just 3 minutes left, so I don't want to miss out on the key takeaways. So what's the most important thing to think about when it comes to sales within each of your 3 phases?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's 2 things really: focus and alignment, because if you have those 2 things, you won't fail. What you're trying to achieve may not work, and that's different than failing. keep your eye on the prize, get everybody aligned, no drifters. This is where I have the rules, Smokey the Bear, see something, say something. Only you can prevent forest fires, right? Truly see something, say something. Grab the back of the belt loop like the person in front of you, follow in line like we did for fire drills when we were kids. Stay in line, don't get out of your swim lane. It's very easy to drift. And this is where management and processes like OKRs or V2 moms will keep everybody aligned. And what we do, and I encourage everyone, present them on a weekly or biweekly basis on a rotation across your team so that everybody at the company gets to hear what Colin and Anna and Bobby are doing as it relates to our 4 growth themes. And on that note, transparency is key. And Colin, thank you so much for having me. I hope I get invited back again.
Hey, Bobby, I would love to have you back, and I really appreciate your time and expertise on this area. I was looking forward to this, and you did not, I don't even know what the word for it. You just did great. You did an amazing job. You exceeded my expectations. There we go.
All right.
So on behalf of everybody on our team and everybody in attendance, really appreciate it, Bobby. For those of you still on, the 3 attendees that we still got, and all of you on YouTube, we've got a bunch more awesome classes, courses, and mentorship coming up. So check those out online. But Bobby, thanks again, and would love to have you back. And for all you still out there in entrepreneurial land, look forward to seeing you all online soon. Thanks again, Bobby.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.